And good morning. Happy Monday and welcome to Power Talk. I'm your host, Adrienne, and I am delighted to be here in this first full week of summer with you guys. I hope that the energy is as beneficial to you as it has been to me. I'm loving summer. So this is really good, and I've got a great show for you today. So my guest today is a gentleman by the name of Rhys. He's a visionary author, he's a speaker, he's a trainer, and he's a coach in the personal growth and energy medicine field. He's the founder of the Rhys Institute of Energy Medicine, and he's the owner, the creator of the Rhys Method, a powerful system of self-discovery, transformation, and healing. And I've just finished reading his brand new book. Let me hold it up for you. And it's called Discover Your Purpose: How to Use 5 Life Purpose Profiles to Unlock Your Hidden Potential and Discover the Life You Are Meant to Live. And I really, really enjoyed your book. Rhys, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Jean.
So when I did the test in the book, I have a tie. I am a tie between the creative idealist and the knowledgeable achiever. No, excuse me, the emotional intelligence specialist.
Okay.
And that nailed me. I mean, it's exactly who I am. I got it, and I really benefited by the information and reading my profile and what am I supposed to do with it. But before we get too much into how all that works, can you tell the listeners and the viewers how you came up with this? Because it's a pretty amazing tool, even to the point of showing how I stand, how I tilt my head, that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, I would like to say that I completely created this, but I didn't. There were 2 brilliant men back in the 1920s, Alexander Lowen and Wilhelm Reich, who during the time when Freud was trying to sell everybody on the idea that all the problems are in the mind, Alexander Lowen and Wilhelm Reich were saying, no, the mind is always the problem, and you can't solve a mind problem with the mind. Einstein then took that and ran with that. But the body carries an enormous amount of wisdom and knowledge, and so Alexander Lowen's work eventually turned into bioenergetics and then core energetics, and there were a number of healing modalities that came out of what they did. But back in the 20s, they were both psychiatrists and they worked in sanitariums, and so they worked with people in severe, what we would call defense. And whereas we work with most people that are relatively coping in their lives and doing pretty well, but then have moments of sort of panic or moments of anger or moments of feeling overwhelmed, or however that goes. But they were working with the most severe cases, and they started noticing that there were very specific, that there were 5, they actually had 6 ways that people went crazy, basically went into sanitariums. And they noticed that there were specific body types that went with those. And then when they did the case studies with these people, they found that there were very specific ways that they were wounded early in childhood, and they thought that the childhood wounding created this, what they called armoring, around the body, and how we defend ourselves, and how they would pull themselves out of the world in some way or dissociate from the world. So they were actually they said they were in the 1920s, they were saying to any therapist, bring me any of your clients and we will within 5 minutes tell you exactly what this person's life history has been. And they were able to do it because they were able to understand that what they're dealing with is that, and what they missed was, the one piece that they missed was that these are soul qualities. They were looking very behavior. They were looking at sort of the wound, and the wound causes this, and the wound causes the body to hold energy in a very specific way. But they were beginning to look at the energetics of it. And now that we understand that the body's energy field, and if your people are all familiar with energy field, correct?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. So body is energy field. Well, the first chakra is the body. And if the body's energy field is the vehicle for which the universe is moving through you to live your purpose, then your body has to be an integral part of your life purpose. And so as I studied energy medicine, in my midlife crisis, after not being able to figure out who I was in my life, and which is what the midlife crisis is about, and I call it the midlife calling because it's when the soul goes, I'm over here, and we're always looking in the other direction, right? The soul's this way, and our brain says, no, over here. This is where we need to go. You need to be successful. You need to be this. You need to be that. And all of our mind is over here. But the soul usually calls. That's what the midlife calling is about. So anyway, so as we are working with these energies in our bodies, I learned through energy medicine that the system is a whole. There's no separate sort of my life and what I do and my job, and it's all one energy. And then I started noticing that and of course I'd been studying for years in different modalities and things and trying to find, cool ways to do things. But it wasn't until I really learned this deeper level of energy medicine that things really came together. But there were things like Myers-Briggs that a lot of people use to discover who you are, what your purpose in life is, or what your business purpose is. Or DISC was always a very popular one. And then Enneagram is another one, very, very popular ways to sort of decide who you are. And certainly the horoscope and astrology is fantastic, but it's incredibly complicated. But those other tests were all business based, and they were very much based on your behavior. And so what will happen is when you take one of those tests, it'll confirm who you are, who you think you are, and then it'll tell you how to be that person better. But the problem is that it's not based on who you actually are, because behavior is something that we can modify with our thinking. And almost to the day we're born, we begin to have our behavior modified by our parents and by society and by our religion and by our language and by the culture and the where we grow up. Everything is telling us who we're supposed to be, and almost nothing tells us that it's okay to be who we actually are. And so over the course of a lifetime, we spend a lot of time sort of women choose the softer, the emotional intelligence specialist or the team player because it's more accepted that a woman is more caretaking or loving or gentle. They don't choose the I'll be the boss, please. And they don't choose the I'm going to be a harsh critic of other people. Whereas men will choose the exact opposite. They will shy away from them, even if it's natural for them to be caretaking and soft. They'll choose the tougher, more critical type of a thinker, or the leader. They'll say, I'll be the leader because that's what culturally we're supposed to do. And nobody really picks the thinker quality. So if you share the thinker with me, nobody really picks that. That's sort of something that comes and gets you.
Actually, mine came and got me at my midlife crisis.
Exactly, and of course it has to. That's what the midlife crisis is about. It's the awareness that maybe I missed something really big, and it was that all the crazy thoughts I've always had are actually what I'm here to share, rather than things I gotta hide from people.
Exactly. That's
really what happened to me, and that's as we talk about that's what's in this book. All of this thinking. Because I had been a competitive athlete, a black belt in martial arts, and a professional tennis player, and a professional athlete, and trying to be that successful man. I decided that I wanted to be the leader and the driven one, and but I always saw this soul quality in people. I always saw that there was so I'd work with players, but I never worked with anybody the same twice, and I worked with tens of thousands of people in my tennis career alone. And working with everybody from beginners to people, to our seniors, to to professional players. And every one of them, I realized, you had to draw out this piece of them that was the most real in them if they're going to really be successful in what they do. And successful for me wasn't winning more matches. It was making sure when they came off the court that they felt like they had really given it their best. They were really present in what they were doing. And the only way to do that is to create a game that kind of moves and plays with their body, with their emotions, with their sense of self, with their all the chakras, which I didn't even know I was doing at the time. You know, with their how do they relate to their opponent? How do they speak? How do they talk in their mind to themselves? How do they see the big picture of how this is playing in their life? And then finally, what's the infinite possibility right now? So those 7 chakras that included the body and its capabilities all had to come into play if you were going to create a fantastic person in the world. The problem is that you know, I was doing all that for other people, but for me, I had to be a successful businessman that made a lot of money and, you know, had the, you know, the vacation home and the house in the suburbs and all this sort of thing. And it wasn't until I realized that, oh my God, I've got to really apply this, that then I did. And these 5 qualities are very, you know, are just the 5 human qualities. They're the people, you know, they're the super creative people, as you were saying, you came out as a creative person. They're the deep feelers. They're the caretakers in the world, the ones who caretake you. They're the achievers in the world, and they're the leaders. And if you look, and you can actually see them, we all know them right away when we see them. We just don't have a label. We don't have a way of sort of acknowledging it. But creative people are, as you were saying, a little head tilt, very thin, very tall, not always present, always in flow of consciousness. You know, they're always, that's how they do it, right. And then the emotional intelligence people, the softer people, are very soft, and they're quiet, and they sit with you, and they're not loud, and they tend not to, you know, want to be the center of attention or anything, but they are very present for you when you're, especially when you're having an emotional issue. They're the ones that you go to, and they hold you in a wonderful way. And then the team player is the one who tend to be, and the emotional intelligence specialists tend to have the softer body, more like the yoga kind of body, and they will, you know, they don't tend to be too have overweight or too underweight, but they're very soft. They don't tend to have they can lift weights their whole life and never have a defined muscle, and so they're very soft that way. Then we have the team players who tend to be more robust. They're stronger because their job is to support other people. Their purpose in life is to support other people. Whereas the creative people are here to be connecting to the other world. And the emotional people are here to be soft and really present. And the team players are here to do and to help and to support. And so they warm people. They tend to be on the sort of stronger, sort of stocky side and physically. But they give great hugs, and they are there, and they are the endurers. They can carry that load for you in a way that nobody else can. And then you've got the achievers who are sort of like the disciplined sort of triathlete kind of body, right? They're the ones who have the bodies that are that are strong and lean. They tend to have lots of letters behind their name. You know, they tend to be successful in school and very organized, and so they're the ones that will teach you what you need to learn, and they have a very balanced life, balanced body, balanced life. Everything is balanced. And then finally, we have the charismatic leaders who actually come in all of the other versions, because the charismatic leaders are actually actors and actresses. And they tend to be method actors. So and they also have very, very elastic bodies. So they're funny. They can be the people that can be 500 pounds, and then next time you see them a year later, they're down to 120. You know, and they are the actors that can raise their, you know, for an acting role, they can go up 50 pounds and then back down to their normal weight within a month afterward, because they have this ability to become whatever the body models whatever they become. So if they're a creative idealist, they tend to be tall and skinny. If they have creative idealist as a secondary quality, or if they have emotional intelligence as a secondary quality, they tend to be a little softer. But they still have this leadership quality with that, so they're more seductive as that. And then if they're team players, they tend to be more robust. They're the big, you know, sort of linemen on the football team. They're very strong people. And the ones that are supporting others and getting where they want to get to, and, you know, the teamster type. And then if they're knowledgeable achievers, they tend to be the highest corporate sort of type of personality. They're very, very successful. Wherever you can make the most money and earn the most and do the biggest things, that's what they're doing if they've got that. And they will have that more balanced type of body. But with the charismatic leader, the one thing that you always know about them is that they've got like 2 times the energy. So if it's a charismatic leader, it's just, you'll see a sort of creative idealist, or you see an emotional intelligence specialist, or you see somebody, but then you're like, wow, that person's got a ton more energy. Well, that's actually a charismatic leader who the way they communicate their leadership is through one of the 5 qualities. And of course, the true charismatic leader are the actors and actresses, politicians. They're the ones who are just, just totally out there. They're on their mission, and we follow them. Sometimes good, sometimes for bad reasons.
Right. So one of the things that I picked up from reading your book was that this tool is really all about helping you to learn how to be what you were meant to be versus really the doing piece of it. Not being so much of a doer. What happens to us when we don't know what our soul really wants for us and we try to do something that's not in alignment with it? How does that affect us?
Well, that's not actually in the book. That's chakra theory. But energetically, when you try to run the wrong energy through your body, it gets sick.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I wanted to go with this.
It thinks it ought to be with a different person. So if I think I'm a certain type of person, I'm going to then be attracted to the wrong kind of person. I'll be in the wrong relationship. I'll be attracted to the wrong kind of job.
Right.
Right.
And so that's why I think that this information is so important, because if you are experiencing that kind of stuff, if you're watching this show today and you are experiencing issues in your life that just don't feel right, then perhaps this is a great place for you to start to figure out what you came here to do, what you came here to be. And Rhys takes this back to your childhood. You nailed my childhood. I was like, what? How did he know that? Yeah.
And there's an exercise in there called the secret place, and the secret place is within each one of us. I call it the breadcrumbs from the soul. The soul, and I certainly have some people that said, well, I never had a happy place when I was a child. I never had any place that was like, we lived in the projects, we did this, my parents were always moving, but there's always something. There's always some piece of your childhood. If you go back, I've never met anybody that didn't have something, some place that they just loved to be. And I had numerous places that I loved to be, but there were 3 of them that I really know myself through. And one of them was on top of a tree, like way up, it was like an 80-foot tall, sort of like the Christmas tree type of tree, with the top is like the point. So up in the very top, you're up there and the tree's doing this, you're holding on to the top of the tree. And so I love being up there because I felt like I was flying. Okay. And there was this experience of realizing that I didn't like being on the earth. I liked being up and above and sort of seeing it from way, way up, seeing this bigger picture. And energetically, we'll be attracted to places in our childhood that are that embody who we're here to be in our lifetime. And so when you remember how you love to play, or where you love to be, or what you love to do in your life as a child, that's actually what you're supposed to create as an adult. So the most important part about being an adult is to recreate what made you the most happy when you were a child, before you learned who you weren't supposed to be. And I always remind people that we all had to make this choice, and it's the impossible choice. When our parents, when we first came into the world, we were non-formed completely. We were not a boy or a girl. We didn't know, there's no way we knew we were supposed to wear blue or pink or speak any language or have any dumb religion. It was just like, we were just non-formed. We came into the world, it was this. But our parents immediately were like, whoa, boy or girl, and you need to be behaving like this, and this is how we do things, and this is the language we speak. And built into that language is all sorts of programming, and this is the religion that we have, and all of these things told us that who we actually were, which was love, pure, connection and love. We were totally connected to everything. And we were told, no, you're an isolated being that's a this, and you better start remembering that. And as we tried to remember that, it became the biggest crisis for us in the world, because we had to make the choice at some point, consciously and unconsciously, and the lower three chakras are the unconscious choices we make, and then the upper four chakras are the conscious choices that we make, and those develop more like 4, 5, 6, 7. But at some point, we had to unconsciously make these choices between being who we were and being loved. And every one of us chooses love. And as much as some of our parents loved us, and some of our parents showed love in very different ways, but and if people are in healing work, chances are your parents were difficult to love. But oftentimes people say, no, my parents totally loved me, but they loved you the way they wanted to love a child, not necessarily loved you for absolutely who you were. Because if you were a person that wasn't going to play along with what they did, they were, if whatever they did to love you, you said, no, I'm just going to not be here. I'm going to be on another planet. I'm going to be somewhere else. They would send you to therapy, no matter how much they loved you. So there's an unwritten law in children growing up, especially with parents that are in their 20s and 30s, which is the most unconscious phase of everybody's lives, when everybody in their 20s and 30s are unconsciously trying to become anything, because they realize, oh my God, I've got to become something, whether I have to be a perfect mother or I have to be a perfect business person, I have to become something other than who I am if I'm going to have any value. And so that's where they live. And then they're looking at you and saying, oh, you're going to have value, but it better be like this. And now we're stuck. And now we make that impossible choice. And really from that point on, that's when children start getting sick. That's when children start having psychological problems and emotional and skin issues and rashes, and they get ADD, or they get, all of the illnesses are based on the inability to know yourself. I run for 15 years now. I've been in 16 years now in energy medicine, either running class, running my school or teaching in an energy medicine school. And I have yet to see an illness. Well, I can't say that. Some illnesses are here to take you home. Okay, so there are some illnesses that are just like, come on, your time is up, you're coming with us.
But that's a soul choice.
That's a choice. Those are right, and that's the soul. That's like a signpost. That's like, okay, we're here, you did it, you're done, we're coming with me. All other illnesses are to wake us up, and they're not waking us up to try to make us something that we hope we're supposed to be. They're waking us up from the fact that we have no idea who we are, and the reason that we're sick is because we're running our energy through our body the wrong way. And so for me, and for you too, if you've tried a lot of creative idealists, I can't tell you how many people told me when I get into energy work, they kept coming over and saying, you better ground, you better put some roots down. Whoa, get grounded. Don't be doing that healing without getting grounded. And I was like, really? Grounded? But that's not how, so I got to put red roots down. So if I don't put red roots down into the earth, I'm not a healer? Really? And then I realized later on when I started teaching the school, when I ran my school, I realized that each of the profiles ground completely differently than all the others. Yeah. To say that a grounded person is some knowledgeable achiever or charismatic leader that's got these big roots down and can fight for their thing, that's just as crazy as our society is. That's not how you ground. That's how they ground. That's how certain people ground. But grounding for a creative idealist is expanded. So the more expanded I am, the more I'm present with all that is, the more I can bring to what I'm doing, because that's the dimension I work in. And so for each person who's watching, if they're healers or they're therapists or they're working in business, if you don't figure out what your deliverable is, and your deliverable is this level of consciousness you have, you're going to have a very difficult time being successful in your business, being successful in your marriage, being successful teaching your children anything of value, being successful in your healing practice, because you're trying to heal with a technique rather than realizing that a healer is someone who figures out who they are first and then chooses a technique that matches who they are. And that's the foundation of what we teach at the Energy Medicine School. Because the difference is that the foundational piece is I'm a creative idealist. Okay, so what type of healer am I going to be? I'm going to be somebody who brings new creative thought to the world. Does that mean I'm going to put people on the table? Maybe. But my favorite healer is Martin Luther King. I don't think he put anybody on the healing table. But I know that he healed millions, if not billions of people, and continues to heal them by his words. So his words were his healing. So he was a charismatic leader, and he was a charismatic leader with a really strong team player energy in there, which he was willing to sacrifice himself for the good of all. And he spoke his healing. So each person needs to understand what does healing look like to a team player? What does healing look like to an emotional intelligence specialist? What does healing look like? And so part of that book is about what does it look like to just be that person? And what are the most amazing qualities of that person? And then the other element of what's in the book is what does it look like when you are in your defense, when you're in the shadow of that? Because a lot of people are studying shadow and doing shadow work and doing these things, but when you understand the profile, you understand that you'll have a very specific kind of shadow. And that shadow quality within you will actually lead you back to the light if you understand where it's leading to, or it can just be something you have to go see your therapist about. Right. And so in the book, there's also the balance between the polarities within each one of us. And of course, a whole system has both the shadow and the light. But when those integrate, that becomes the entire purpose in life. So the energy, so for instance, the narcissism that Martin Luther King had to have, he had to have narcissism to be that altruistic, because to be that altruistic, he had to be the only one. So a narcissist, the only one that knows that I've got to be the one that has to do this is a narcissist. And the person says, right, it's got to be me. There's no one else. I'm looking around the entire world. No one else can give this speech. And I got to tell you, I'm sure Martin Luther King was hoping that someone else could make that speech, because he knew that was going to get him killed.
Exactly.
But he knew. Yeah.
So this book is just the beginning, really. I mean, it takes you where you need to be for the moment, but you also have a school. How does somebody go to the next step, Rhys?
Well, the next step is going to my website, Rhys, R-H-Y-S, thomasinstitute.com, and you can see what I have there. And there's classes that I do 5 weekend classes a year that they run through the chakras, and they run through the 5 profiles that are in the book. That are we use the book and we use the profiles, but the profiles are the foundational rock that you build the rest of your life on. And then we teach the chakra system and the healing work that teach you how you actually transform. So when you're transforming, once you realize who you are, you realize, oh, you can't ever know who you are in your brain.
Right.
You can only know who you are by feeling it. And of course, our chakras, because they had so many wounds around not being able to do this or not being able to act this way or that way or be this type of person or have to love a certain way, our chakras, which are how we feel who we are and how we feel what's around us, how we feel our life purpose, are all shut down. Because we're not allowed to be all those things. We're only allowed to be some of those things. And so when you're trying to be the right person, the good person, the one who says the right thing or is always saying something nice or doing something, and that 5th chakra is like, it can hardly say anything because of that, we can't feel what our purpose is anymore. And so once you understand who you are, then you have to do the work with that, which there is in the book, there is a lot of work around doing the meditations and doing that work. But the next level is to go and do the face-to-face work, because the issue with I always tell people, you can do a lot of work online, and I'm actually have an online program that's going to be coming out next month. So if people go and get on my mailing list at the Rhys Thomas Institute site, they can they'll see that. But you can do some work online, but most work has to be done face to face, because most work, all wounding we have has a person's face on it. I mean, unless you I always say, unless you were bitten by a dog or grew up next to a volcano, every wound you have has a person's face on it. And you need to work through that energy with people to be able to really own your power again.
Exactly.
And so we have about 110 people or so a year that come through the program, and we are, it's such a thrill to be able to offer them the ability to develop this transformational system of both knowing who they are, healing work, understanding how their energy works, and then what's it like to really live their purpose, and what would they do for work? How do they do their relationships better, and raise their children, and what would it be like to see this in everybody else and be able to say, oh my God, that person that I used to think was such a pain in the ass is actually amazing. I just was only looking at their negative behavior.
So viewers, this is the beginning. Get your hands on this book. It is great. You'll love it. Discover Your Purpose, How to Use the 5 Life Purpose Profiles to Unlock Your Hidden Potential and Live the Life You Are Meant to Be. Rhys, this has been delightful. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom. I've learned a lot, and I know our viewers have as well. And viewers, next week is 4th of July holiday, so we won't have a show next week. I'll catch you in 2 weeks. And until then, remember, people who take responsibility for their lives create the reality they desire. Ciao.
Got it.
Cool.
All right.
It still says it's recording.
Hold it.